The last point of the show is going to be my ugly point. And this is so incredibly on brand. So here we go. And remember, I've purposely picked ugly for this. I didn't put bad and I didn't put good. And here's why. I didn't say it's good that s1mple, the GOAT, is back and he's playing really well. He is. Because there's massive negatives. Falcons is shit. But I didn't say it's bad either. I didn't say Falcons being shit is why it's bad that s1mple's back and he's good. The reason it's ugly is because, one, I saw there was actually a detail. Richard made this video, by the way, like ages ago. But when he did his video about Falcons and s1mple joining, he revealed in that video that basically, if s1mple, apparently it's on s1mple, if s1mple likes it in Falcons and wants to stay, potentially he can join their team next year when Nico joins, and for like a discount to them, as opposed to like, you know, that touted $3 million fee that was obviously so insane, I don't think anyone would have paid it anyway, and that's why Falcons did a loan to sort of see what level he's for. Now, the reason I put this as ugly is because that does imply what I've actually said about Falcons all the time, which is you don't have to worry that they're shit now, because, spoiler, if they're really going to get to keep s1mple and Nico's joining next year, well, one, that already could make you cracked, and then two, the part people really miss about building rosters is the reason Falcons was in so much trouble is they never did get the Nico or s1mple before. The second you get those players, and by the way, I'm telling you right now, guys, if you get Nico and s1mple, it's almost, you'd have to actually be the worst GM in history ever to not get a good team, because even if that team sucks, every role player will join your team now, immediately. Like, if you go, you could just take up the HLTV top 20 and about, like, the joke is like 80 players will, yes, they'd instantly join because you've got already Nico and s1mple. Like, they're smart enough to know if I play with them, I will win. So the reason I say it's ugly is, one, I still think there's positive could come even if it's line up shit and they have to, like, wipe the deck and change 3 players. But I also will say, as I alluded to at the beginning, I don't miss when it comes to this guy. Like, you have to understand, I wasn't gambling on, like, his talent. I know this guy is an insane grinder. Like, he has the craziest work ethic ever. It's funny, he can bill it as all these negative, maybe he's egotistical, maybe he thinks he should be, whatever it is, it works, mate. And you saw, even though he's had all that time off, remember, he's only just played his first ever land maps, guys. I'm not even trolling. He never even had 3 bad maps in a row. Every time he would even have a scuffed map, the next map he would unironically carry, even when they lost all those games. And it didn't matter how badly people played around him. He did exactly what you dream of. He hit the fucking flick shots. He was doing the s1mple no-scopes. He was even going for the clutch snap. It's literally, if you're a s1mple fan, this was like the dream comeback. So yes, obviously Falcons is shit at the moment. They don't even win maps. That is a problem. But I thought he looked actually really good out the gate. And this is why I'm so glad he at least got his chance again, because you give him time. Like, look, you're not supposed, you should, by the way, you shouldn't even really be this good instantly, but it just shows you, like, s1mple just has something, an extra quality. And by the way, I would absolutely give the same room if, like, Ziwu took 6 months off, or Nico took a year off, or Monesi had like a hand injury or something. When they come back, you've got to give people like that like a real chance, because you just saw, remember, this guy literally hadn't played a land map of CS, and instantly, by the way, he looked immediately like a top 20 player in the world. I'm not even trolling. Like, in some of the rounds, he already looked like he was back. So I think even though right now it's a mega scuffed setup, and who even knows if this 5-man line even ever plays next year, I think this, I won't put it as good because it's so negative on Falcons, but I think it's an ugly point. I'm going to say it's ugly. s1mple's back and he's in Falcons.
Yeah, I'm going to agree. So I've had the kind of the fortune of working both of the events that s1mple's kind of come back.
All right.
His debut with Thunderpick, I was working that group. I was actually meant to be on his debut game, but we were flying back from Elisa, so I had to kind of swap the shifts into the evening shift. So I got to see his, well, I mean, I guess I got kind of lucky in the sense I got the elimination game that he had, which is the VP one. But even then,
probably his best series as well.
Exactly. You still got to see kind of the signs of life out of him. I mean, he still looked just unbelievable, and he was the only one. I mean, like, everyone else in his team was like nowhere near even like remotely positive, and he was like absolutely flying. So yeah, s1mple looked fantastic. There's, you know, everything to love there for him. So yeah, I'm with you. I think obviously for me, this is without a doubt feeling like a Falcons like dead team, but like not a buff. You know, it's just like they're just a dead team. There's evidently going to be changes coming through. I think, you know, there's very good arguments to make that like any of the 4 outside. I mean, I've seen this like kind of narrative a lot, especially with people who work in the scene, of like making arguments for like any other 4 bar s1mple, of like who would they change for them kind of thing. But s1mple's the other one where like everybody's saying like, yeah, fair enough. I mean, the only argument that I've seen people make as a vice versa is that like s1mpius was obviously the best player on this team, but s1mple was just such an upgrade. Like, I mean, even though it's like, it's all about potential, and from what we've seen so far, he's looked great. And then obviously at ESL Challenger Katowice, I was there when they finished dead last, but again, you still got to see the good signs of life out of him. I mean, even against Turn Off Fire, man, he had Woxic absolutely pocketed that entire game. Woxic had no space at range that entire game, and he really struggled to look kind of, as clean as he was. And it does make you kind of argue that if maybe in a couple of those maps, if Xantares wasn't as clean as he was, that s1mple could have done enough to even get them a map, right? I mean, obviously that was the big thing, like that, especially that Inferno, they really looked awkward, but they did have an overtime on Dust too, where s1mple got to showcase what he's got. So I'm with you. I think, I'm really glad that we're seeing s1mple back in the server. The Go obviously for a reason, and still has got that level. As much as people want to say, like, I mean, the class thing is like saying he's washed, like he isn't like farming face it every single day. Like, this is the stupid thing about it. It's just like people say he's washed because like he has no games HTV, or like the classic one was like when he like lost against Metasport, even though again he still did fine, right? And it's like, it's one best of 3 first of all, hasn't played the game at all at a pro level since CS2 came out, but they still want to say it's washed because of one best of 3, which is fucking crazy first of all. But then you see this guy play like anything else online as well, like Face It or whatever, and he's still sick. I mean, I even saw something, and this is kind of stupid, but like he played against like 2 blatant cheaters and he still beat them. And it's like, you got you guys crying about cheating left, right, and center in Premiere, which obviously is a bit of a problem, and it does absolutely no effect towards s1mple. So I mean, it's one of those things for me, like people just like to bitch and moan just because they like to be edgy. But I think the realization is next year is that when this team actually comes, is like a full team, when Nico joins and whoever else ends up joining us, there's kind of all these rumors about it, people are going to start like eating their words and flip back the other way, as they all were when s1mple's at his best. Stockholm 2021 saying like, this guy's the GOAT, he never left. And it's gonna be the same thing, like as I mentioned with like Kassar thing. I should even start doing it. I should just go and bookmark the post of the people who are saying like, oh, this guy's fucking washed and he's a bot and he should retire or whatever, and just see what they're like in a year's time when Falcons are actually playing well, and when this team's actually fixed, and when they're actually at the level with all the players that they really want are in the server and they're winning. Because ultimately there will come a point where Falcons actually start competing, because it's impossible that they won't with the name value they're going to have in the server if Nico joins and whoever else joins. Maybe it requires like an IGL change or whatever as the case is, but it's going to be a case where they start doing well in tournaments, and I just want to see whether people just completely flip again and say, oh yeah, he never left, it was just bad team, it wasn't his fault, which is kind of the thing that we're sort of saying now. He's doing his job and doing it very well on a very dysfunctional team that is basically dead in the water. They even know it, we all know it. This team is going to go through some sort of change, and probably the vibes are a little bit off, right? I mean, even saw Challenger Castle, the vibes were most definitely off. There was a lot of people like definitely, there was so little comms as well. Like I saw like times where like they were having tack pauses and like Snappy didn't even know what to say, right? Because they were like losing like 10-2 or whatever. So I think it's just inevitable that this s1mple, like this move will end up working out for the best. It's just people like to hate just because it's like a big name.
Yeah, this is just pretty stark difference versus how he looked when he was on Metasport or against Metasport earlier in the year in those online games. Like his rifling is so solid now. In the VP series, I just checked to make sure. He only got 13 op kills of his 41 kills, and because so many of those frags were just good rifle multi-kills, his mechanics with rifling now, like he wasn't playing CS2 at the beginning. When I looked at what he did against Metasport, he was just so stationary, just like he didn't really do all the little donk slide sort of things that you need to do when you're taking so kind of like 50-50 duels. You do like so many top players now, when they are entering a rifle v rifle fight, they'll kind of like randomly, it's almost like the donk slide, which I've shown in the past on my own YouTube, but they'll also just kind of like instantly crouch and hit a random strafe key A or D if they're the one that's stationary. And s1mple can do that, and he can still track the target so well with the rifle, which is really hard. Like usually the whole point of that is it makes you harder to hit for your opponent. You're not, and sometimes the fights get a little messy because the time to kill has increased for both players. But actually s1mple can just headshot people when he crouches to just offset his opponent's crosshair placement, which is really, really hard, mechanically speaking, because usually you're supposed to be facing somebody who's also doing it, but it's not even that he's just doing it with the op. That's what's so impressive. But when he does have it, like, he probably is like, he's the player that looks the freest flowing in terms of his movements and what he thinks is available, and already his game sense is so strong that use it like a shotgun. He'll also be able to hit pretty far flicks with it. Like he's caught up to speed so quickly, but I know that he's obviously been playing a lot of Face It games, and I just think that as it stands right now, s1mple is going to give the top players a run for their money next year. I think Thorin definitely got a little crazy on Hot Take Point Mate saying they're going to make playoffs. Like, the rest of this team is ass right now, but at the same time...
I mean, my s1mple prediction was good. That could happen, but the team has to be able to win a game, Maui. They have to win a match.
Exactly. The predictions about him as an individual player, I think you're going to be closer than anybody at this point.
Oh, but so by the way, that's one last thing I'd maybe say as well, which is I'll just use this as an example of how people take things that aren't facts and treat them like they're facts. Just because s1mple told us, one, I don't like CS2, and then two, I might be a rifler now. People acted like that meant, one, he could never be good at CS2 and he could never AWP ever again, which is like, what? Because as you saw, like, I agree, by the way, he didn't force the AWP, but he looked good even when he was AWPing. He was like hitting all the flicks you'd want him to. In fact, the irony was he was actually doing that thing like the Drake and shit where you hit all the hard shots and miss some of the normal ones. So that was actually sort of a positive. It just showed me in like a month or two, it'll be tuned up, it'll all be good. See more cool, funny, interesting clips based on topics from my content? Well, subscribe to this channel then, or, you know, be a pleb and don't.